We are alone here, husband. You can speak the plain truth as we both know it. Rhaenyra's children are not of your blood. But Laena's are. They are her legacy.
History does not remember blood. It remembers names.
In the history of Westeros, few lines cut deeper into the soul of a dynasty than this final, chilling exchange. It is the moment where the sea snake, the wealthiest man in the realm, admits that his legacy is built on a lie he is willing to die for, while his wife, the queen who never was, begs him to choose the truth of their flesh and blood over the hollow promise of a throne. To understand the gravity of this confrontation, we must look at the titans standing in this room. Princess Rhaenys and Lord Corlys Velaryon are not just husband and wife, they are a political superpower, a partnership forged in the fires of the Great Council and cemented by decades of navigating a realm that rejected them. For years, they moved as one, Corlys providing the ambition and the fleet, Rhaenys providing the royal legitimacy and the dragon. They were the realm's ultimate power couple, united by a shared slight and a shared goal. But the death of their daughter, Laena, shatters this unity. It exposes the fault line that has always run beneath their marriage, the difference between a man obsessed with what history will write about him and a woman obsessed with keeping her family alive today. Standing in the veil of privacy of High Tide, stripped of their courtly masks, we witness the moral fracture of House Velaryon. This moment exposes them completely and proves that sometimes the dream of a throne shatters the very bones of a family. Today, we will perform a deep dissection of this pivotal scene, analyzing the subtext, the power dynamics, and the razor-sharp dialogue to understand how Rhaenys wins the moral argument, even as Corlys retreats into the cold comfort of history. So, as always, I'll talk about all those things that make this scene so powerful in detail. But first, we need some context. The location and timing of this confrontation are critical. We are at high tide on Driftmark, immediately following the funeral of Laena Velaryon. The setting is private, a veil of privacy that strips away the need for courtly deceit. The timing is raw. Rhaenys holds the emotional and moral high ground because her grief is fresh and undeniable. Corlys, however, is on the defensive. He is desperate to maintain the fragile political structure he has built, a structure that relies entirely on the legal fiction that Rhaenyra's strong-haired sons are his true grandsons. The scene opens with Rhaenys immediately targeting the source of their pain.
She wanted to come home, and he denied her.
Daemon did what he thought best.
Daemon only ever does what is best for Daemon.
Rhaenys opens with a pointed accusation of neglect, to which Corlys attempts to deflect by framing Daemon's selfish refusal as a difficult leadership decision. However, Rhaenys' retort, "Daemon only ever does what is best for Daemon," cuts through this defense to expose the solipsism inherent in their political ambition. Philosophically, she is dismantling the myth of noble sacrifice that Corlys clings to. She reveals that what powerful men call hard choices are often just selfish acts of self-preservation wrapped in the guise of duty, sacrificing the vulnerable to serve the ego of the ambitious.
Laena needed our maesters.
The surgeons in Pentos are as well trained as our maesters. You're looking to place blame for an act of the gods.
Rhaenys anchors her accusation in the tangible failure of their protection, implying that the political exile Corlys supported stripped Laena of the safety of home. Corlys counters with a defensive intellectualization, invoking an act of the gods to philosophically absolve himself of agency and guilt. This deflection reveals his desperate need to frame the tragedy as unavoidable divine chaos, rather than the direct, calculable cost of his political ambition. But Rhaenys refuses to let him hide.
Mayhaps the gods have scorned us for our insatiable pride.
Rhaenys rejects the comfort of fatalism, pivoting the argument from external bad luck to internal moral causality. By invoking insatiable pride, she diagnoses their tragedy as classic hubris, the belief that their ambition to reverse the Great Council's verdict justifies any cost. She forces Corlys to confront the terrifying possibility that Laena's death is not random divine cruelty, but the specific historical price extracted for his refusal to abandon a throne that was never his.
The crown was yours until those fools at the Great Council plucked it from your head. Is it such a terrible thing for your husband to wish to win it back?
Corlys attempts a strategic pivot here, reframing his raw hunger for power as a noble crusade for restitution, masking his own desires behind the veil of his wife's historical trauma. Philosophically, he is attempting to legitimize his ambition by anchoring it in a narrative of justice, hoping that by appealing to the wound of the Great Council, he can transform his selfish political climbing into a righteous, shared burden. This reveals his inability to own his actions. He is forced to dress his ego in the robes of his wife's stolen rights to validate the terrible cost. But Rhaenys rejects this falsehood outright.
Tonight of all nights, let us lay aside this falsehood. It's not justice for your wife that drives you, it is your own ambition. It is desire for the throne, if not for yourself, then for the scions of your house. I gave up the idea of wearing a crown a generation ago. It is you, Lord Husband, who refuses to abandon this pursuit, even now at the cost of our children.
Rhaenys systematically dismantles the noble lie Corlys has constructed, stripping away the pretense of justice to reveal the raw ambition rotting beneath. By distinguishing her own acceptance of the past, I gave up the idea, from his relentless pursuit, she exposes that his crusade is not a shared burden, but a solitary obsession he forces the family to carry. Philosophically, this is a moment of total moral reckoning. She draws a direct, causal line between his political hunger and the tangible destruction of their lineage, forcing him to confront that the cost of our children is the blood price paid for his ego. Corlys, unable to refute the moral charge, retreats to philosophy.
What is this brief mortal life, if not the pursuit of legacy?
Legacy may be why you live your life, Corlys.
Corlys attempts to retreat from the moral battlefield to the fortress of existential philosophy, framing his ambition not as greed, but as a defiant, necessary answer to the meaningless brevity of mortal life. Rhaenys' retort punctures this grandiosity by repersonalizing it. She exposes that this pursuit of legacy is not a universal truth of the human condition, but a specific, solitary pathology he has chosen, valuing the abstraction of the future over the tangible needs of the living. Now, Rhaenys counters with a concrete demand for truth.
I want Driftmark to pass through Laena's line to Baelor, to true Velaryon blood. Declare it now while all are gathered here, and we will say that is how we will honor Laena's memory.
Rhaenys moves from abstract critique to a concrete demand for remediation, insisting that the restoration of their house requires a return to true Velaryon blood rather than the political fiction currently in place. Philosophically, she is demanding the dismantling of the legal lie regarding Rhaenyra's sons, positing that the only way to truly honor Laena's memory is to prioritize biological authenticity over dynastic ambition. She leverages the urgency of the gathering to force Corlys to choose between his hollow political construct and the tangible reality of his granddaughter. This forces Corlys to confront the lie his legacy is built on.
And disinherit our son.
He will be the king consort. His son will one day sit the Iron Throne.
You would have me cast an even darker shadow over those little boys than already exists.
Corlys attempts to frame his resistance as paternal protection for Laenor, but Rhaenys exposes the redundancy of this concern, since Laenor is already destined for the throne. Corlys' rebuttal regarding the darker shadow reveals the fragile paradox of his ambition. His power relies entirely on maintaining a collective delusion. Philosophically, he admits that the survival of his dynasty now depends not on justice or blood, but on the rigorous suppression of the truth, prioritizing the stability of a lie over the integrity of his lineage. Rhaenys then delivers the decisive blow, utilizing the privacy of the moment to force the truth into the open.
We are alone here, husband. You can speak the plain truth as we both know it. Rhaenyra's children are not of your blood. But Laena's are. They are her legacy.
Rhaenys utilizes the isolation of the moment to strip away political posturing and demand a confrontation with the plain truth Corlys desperately ignores, the biological illegitimacy of his political heirs. This is the decisive checkmate, where she leverages undeniable reality against his constructed fiction, forcing him to choose between the authentic legacy of blood, Laena's daughters, and the artificial legacy of power, Rhaenyra's sons. She exposes that his grand ambition is built entirely on a legal fiction that requires the erasure of his actual lineage, proving that his pursuit of power has become an act of self-erasure. Corlys makes his choice. He turns away, retreating, literally and verbally.
History does not remember blood. It remembers children's names.
This final line is both a justification and an admission of defeat. He chooses the abstract name, the political influence of the Velaryons on the throne, over the biological blood of his true granddaughter. He cannot win the moral argument, so he walks away from it. This conversation fundamentally fractures the relationship between Rhaenys and Corlys. Rhaenys establishes herself as the unwavering moral authority, willing to confront reality without flinching. Corlys is revealed as a man willing to sacrifice his own blood for a hollow idea of legacy. He leaves to go back to adventuring, effectively abandoning her to cope with his ambition alone. Rhaenys stands firm, the tragic victor of a debate that could not save her family from the war to come, but which proved, once and for all, that she was the only one in the room brave enough to speak the truth.